In this video, we are discussing the security and privacy in a little bit more detail, particularly with using AI at New York Tech. So, for the agenda today, we are going to have a refresher of AI, as well as the sources of data. We're going to speak about deepfakes and the privacy with AI and the laws, some ethical benchmarks and directives that are starting to be created, as well as the data privacy paradigm, securing your digital footprint, how New York Tech is keeping you safe, and key security risks. So here's a nice visual of what are exactly where artificial intelligence lives within the data science field. So data science is at the very bottom. So this is the all things encompass data science. It's a cross-disciplinary field that seeks to extract value from data. Then you have the deep learning, which is a subset of machine learning, which is artificial neural networks. So this is where the new prompts and new information is created. The machine learning is the algorithms where you actually put in the data and it spits out based on what it knows on the data sets that has been trained on, but it does not necessarily create new information. And then there's artificial intelligence, which makes this is the programs with the ability to learn and reason like humans. So we're going to discuss two different types of AIs, traditional AI as well as generative AI and large language models. So traditional AI refers to systems that are designed to perform specific tasks. So these have the predefined rules and data sets. They cannot create new content. Two great examples of this is chatbots, which programs are designed to simulate conversation with human users. If you ever log into a website and try to get some help and support, you may be speaking to a virtual assistant or a chatbot. And then there's virtual assistants, which is the software agents that users assist users with various tasks. So this is the Siri's, the Bixby's, Google, Alexa, and they are allowed to do the most that they can do that they have been trained on, but they do not create necessarily new information. Now, with generative AI and large language models, this is where it got interesting for the world in general, but particularly education. So Gen AI and large language models are the systems that are capable of generating new content. So these are the ones that you put in the data sets, you put in the prompts, and it often utilizes deep learning techniques to spit out new content for you. Some of the main examples that we wanted to kind of just use as examples would be ChatGPT as well as DALL-E. So these are both created by OpenAI. Google has Gemini, which was formerly known as Bard. Microsoft does Bing AI as well as Copilot. And then Google actually has a new AI tool in their Vlogger software, which is it takes a image to a talking video, so you can make a talking video from an image. And then there's Claude, which is a process of it processes large amounts of information, and Claude is actually coming up in speed with the education realm. So a lot of educators are starting to use Claude more than ChatGPT. So let's talk about the sources of AI data because AI can get their data in multiple different ways. So there's structured data, which includes data from databases, spreadsheets, ERP systems, CRM systems, and other systems where data is neatly organized and labeled. So this is the pretty data that has already been labeled and already organized. Then there's the semi-structured data. So this includes data from emails, logs, XML files where the data is not necessarily tabular formatted, but does contain tags and other markers to segregate key elements. So it is a little structured, but it's not as structured as the structured data. There's also unstructured data. So this includes emails, social media posts, photos, voice recordings, and other forms of input data that aren't predefined or organized. So in my mind, if I'm working with quantitative versus qualitative data, the unstructured data to me is more of the qualitative nature because you have to go in and tag and do a lot more manual labor work to make this unstructured data usable for you. There's also streaming data. So this refers to the data generated in real time from sources like IoT devices, stock price feeds, social media streams, etc. So this is the information that is constantly changing and constantly new. One of the biggest concerns right now with AI, other than students using it in nefarious ways, is deep fakes. Now, deepfakes are falsified media where a person in an existing image or video is replaced with someone else's likeness using artificial neural networks. So this is definitely deep learning algorithms that analyze existing media to learn patterns and recreate facial expressions, movements, and speech. So this is actually a really cool technology. And it can be used for simple purposes. One of the best examples I have is there's a David Beckham commercial where he's in the commercial, he starts off speaking in English, and they actually use AI so he can speak 9 separate languages. And that's a good use of this tool that, it's for marketing purposes. I imagine that David Beckham might know a few languages, but he might not know all 9. So it's those type of benign purposes like entertainment that could be beneficial, but it also posed significant risks in spreading misinformation and damaging reputations. There's also been cases where a deep fake video of a board of trustees saying that the company was losing so much money and they were in they're in really big trouble. And I believe that their stock prices crashed like by $15 million overnight once this deep fake got posted. So it can have a significant risk with people as well as celebrities and businesses, deep fakes. And one of the things that we also have to think about is the deep fakes with the videos altering politicians' speeches or celebrities' appearances. This is really important and can be potentially scary because politicians need to be trusted that what we're seeing is what they're actually saying. And unfortunately, this raises concerns about authenticity of visual content and challenges of trustworthiness because we're not 100% sure if the politician or the celebrity actually said the statement that they did. So how to spot a deep fake? So you can have irregular lighting as well as odd reflections, small details out of place, as well as objects' edges flickering. So it looks like it's a little bit edited. There's also inconsistent color or shading and out of phase lip syncing. So there's definitely some tools and some ways that you could decide whether or not this is actually a deep fake, which this is where digital literacy and fluency and AI literacy and fluency comes into play. Because you have to take a step back and be like, what am I looking at? Am I looking at something that is real? One of the things that we want to be very mindful of is the information that we're putting into the AI tools. So we do have at New York Tech, we do have a data classification matrix, which is a really great tool to discuss what is public data, restricted data, as well as confidential data. So public data is press releases, course information, and research publications. So this is data that you could probably find elsewhere on the interwebs, as well as Google and on our website. Then there's confidential data. So confidential data is data protected by the state or federal privacy regulations. So you can think about this as HIPAA and FERPA, as well as data protected by confidential agreements. So this is social security numbers, maybe home addresses, additional data information. And you never want to put this information into an AI tool because that allows a security risk and then allows other people's information to be sent elsewhere and used on the dark web. Restricted data is all institutional data that is not explicitly classified as confidential or public, but should be treated as restricted data. So this is the gray area of our data, right? So we want to take a step back and think about the purpose of utilizing this AI tool with this data. So this data we'll go through this a little bit further, but this data you may have to actually scrub of any identifier information as well as make it more anonymous in order for it to be used in a AI tool. Or you may want to not even include this type of data in an AI tool even after removing all of the identifiers that you can. So there's a data privacy paradigm. So the ChatGPT and other our large language models are trained on data sets from the public data as well as user prompts. So the large language models learn from user interactions, which magnifying the risk of leaked information being used for nefarious reasons. So what you're putting into the tool is learning from. One of the core challenges posed by generative AI right now is unlike conventional applications, large language models have no delete button from the consumer side. The delete button comes from the application and the software developer side only. There's also no straightforward mechanism to unlearn specific information and no equivalent to deleting a row in your database's user table. So if you thought you cleaned and scrubbed your data, and then all of a sudden you see that you put people's username and passwords in still were in there, there's no way of saying, oh, just kidding, I want you to delete just those informations. So it's it's very important to be very mindful of what data that you're actually putting into these softwares because we do not want to have any risk issues or any leaked information getting tied back to the use of this tool. One of the things that you can do is you can actually ask the software companies for a privacy statement or how do they use their tools. We'll give you some questions at the end to ask them. But this is an example of one that we received when I went to the software company and said, hey, talk to me about your data retention for your tool. And it says our AI developed and maintained by OpenAI, so that is the tool that created ChatGPT, does not retain personal information from users' interactions. Perfect. Does not retain it. It's not being kept on a cloud server, on a actual server, or somebody's not writing it down and throwing it into a file cabinet. It also says that in line with privacy and data protection best practices, the information is provided during interactions is processed to generate responses and is not stored after the conversation ends. So once again, they're not retaining any personal information and they're not storing the conversation after it ends. Perfect. So we prioritize our user privacy, ensuring that conversations are confidential and not used for any purpose beyond providing immediate responses. Great. So now they're showing us that their tool is not learning from our conversations. And they say our commitment to privacy is reflected in adherence to strict data protection standards, including the compliance with relevant regulations such as the GDPR, which is the European Union privacy laws, and the CCPA, which is the California privacy laws, to safeguard user information effectively. So when I read this privacy statement, I see that they do not retain the personal information from user interactions. They do not store any information after the conversation ends. The conversations are confidential and not used for any purposes beyond providing immediate responses. So they're not selling the data, they're not training their system on the data. And they're also following the GDPR and CCPA regulations, which is great. So this tool sounds safe. So some key security risks that we want to make sure that we review is that there's the data retention and misuse component. So this is when personal information is shared in a chat, such as addresses or phone numbers, and they could be retained and potentially assessed and used inappropriately due to inefficient deletion policies. So if you have some personal information in there, you put it into the chat, into the AI tool, it may get reused in nefarious ways. There's also the proprietary information leakage. So if you're working on a project and you have working with a confidential information or proprietary code, you do not want to put those into an AI tool because that allows information to be leaked and could be exploited by a competitor to gain a market advantage, but it could also just be another security risk that we do not want to have in there. There's also the data privacy regulations. So we referenced two data privacy regulations in the previous slide with the European Union as well as California, but information shared with a large language model hosted in a different legal jurisdiction might inadvertently violate laws about international data transfers. So you also want to be mindful of where the tools are being stored and created. So how to use AI safely? So you want to be mindful of the personal information. So you don't want to have a lot of personal information out there. And you also want to understand the privacy settings. So that's discussing with and asking the software company exactly what the privacy settings are. You don't want to overshare. So this reminds me of when we first got Facebook and everybody was putting their first and last name, their maiden names, where they went to high school, what year did they graduate from high school, where are they checking in, where are they going, where are they going to college, where do they work? And we were just providing a lot of information on social media when it first started. And I feel like a lot of people are starting to scale that back, and that's really what we want with AI is you do not want to overshare. Anonymize what you can. You also want to think critically and you want to be mindful of understanding the tools that we're using and know that AI is not perfect. So it does still need that human touch and human capability. You want to report any inappropriate content. So if the AI tool is providing you with inappropriate content or some hallucinated responses, you want to report that to the software company because that can help them deter their tool and retrain their tool because there might be something wrong with it. You also want to be cautious of AI generated messages. So this is messages that you receive that you did not go above and beyond to ask it any questions. You should always be the one that's prompting AI to provide the response. AI should not be reaching out to you first. You also don't want to solely rely on AI. Like I said, AI is not perfect. It's created by humans. There's unconscious bias. There's blind spots in the data sets. There's always the issues with prompt engineering that you might not be getting the best prompt. You might be getting hallucinated answers. So you do not want to solely rely on AI. It could be a really great rough draft, but it should not be your final draft. And you also want to stay informed. So staying informed means taking trainings, learning about what is going on in your industry and your field with AI tools, and staying in the know. And that's something that the New York Tech community, as well as ATS, is trying to do for you, is to ensure that you're staying informed and have these opportunities for professional and personal development, as well as fully understanding the tools that are available to you. So a couple more ways that you can secure your digital footprint is you can use anonymization techniques. So before submitting the text for grammar checking, you want to anonymize or alter names, locations, and identifiable details within the document. So you want to make sure that it does not know a lot of information about you, but it knows enough to be able to provide you a response. You want to use hypothetical scenarios or anonymize the content to avoid a context to avoid revealing specific strategies or technologies. You do not need to have a very specific example. You can actually use hypothetical scenarios as well. You want to understand and leverage the privacy policies. So this is where you want to review and understand the updates and the privacy policies of large language model providers. Ask the service provider about the data retention and deletion practices to assess the security of your data. So you saw that I did that with a sample privacy statement, but you want to make sure that you understand fully where your data is going. You can also seek secure alternatives. So for sensitive discussions, opt for platforms that offer end-to-end encryption to ensure that conversations remain confidential. There also are opportunities for you to examine the free version versus the paid version um, of a tool because sometimes the paid version can provide more of a secure uh, encryption and secure alternate to the free version. So that's something that you may want to also examine is, okay, how do they secure my data? How am I secure with the free version of this tool versus the paid version of the tool? And if you're going to be using the tool a lot, you might as well go with the paid version to keep you safe. Speaking of keeping you safe, so New York Tech, we are trying to keep you safe. So we're currently developing and vetting a process for the use of AI tools. ATS does not currently support the AI functions of these tools, but once they have been vetted, we are here to help. One of the great examples of this is that there's a lot of Office 365 AI tools in Word, PowerPoint, and Excel that we are actually going to be doing trainings on. You want to use the tools at your own risk. So you want to anonymize your prompts when possible. Also, you want to use your personal email address to create the accounts if necessary for these tools. The reason being is your NYIT is actually a way to as a self-identifier, so that the tool actually knows that someone who works or goes to school at NYIT is using the tool. Whereas if you use your Gmail address, it's just another person using Gmail. And you also want to see how long the apps keep your info and what do they do with it. So there are some really great alternatives out there for the keeping you safe. So privacy with AI, the laws. So the European Union has a General Data Protection Regulation, a GDPR, which is the most comprehensive privacy regulation in the world. What's great is it governs the data protection and privacy for all individuals within the European Union and the European Economic Area and provides extensive rights to data subjects. So they are imposing strict obligations on the data controllers and processors, requiring them to implement data protection principles and adhere to strict guidelines and standards on handling personal data. So they're keeping the European Union's citizens safe in the world. In the United States, privacy laws consist of both federal and state regulations. So two examples that we have is HIPAA and FERPA. However, there is no overarching federal privacy law that comprehensively addresses AI-driven data processing. So there is no GDPR for the United States. What we're seeing is that a lot of states are creating their own privacy acts or privacy laws, such as California, to protect their own state's residents, which is a really great starting point. But at the same time, that means that we're going to have potentially 50 different privacy acts or privacy laws for 50 different states. So that could actually be a little bit trickier in the United States, because then you have to be mindful of where your data is being stored versus where you're using the data, because you do not want to accidentally violate privacy laws. What is also great is that there are some ethical benchmarks and directives that are being created. For example, the Partnership on AI is a coalition of leading companies, organizations, and individuals impacted by artificial intelligence and stands out as a beacon. So they get together a bunch of diverse stakeholders from tech giants to AI users to create a shared platform, fostering collaboration between entities that might not have typically interacted. So they're trying to get all the stakeholders in the same room to discuss these things and discuss how to use technology and AI ethically. Their mission hinges on establishing a common ground, positioning PAI as a unifying catalyst for positive change within the AI ecosystem. I'm going to say that part again. So their mission hinges on establishing common ground, positioning PAI as a unifying catalyst for positive change within the ecosystem. So this is a really great thing that they're trying to get all the stakeholders together to figure out what to do and how to keep people safe with AI. Another one that is out there trying to create ethical considerations that technologies are advanced for the benefit of humanity is the IEEE Global Initiative on Ethics of Autonomous and Intelligent Systems. And they have the idea that AI, in its design and application, should inherently prioritize human welfare, ensuring that all ethical considerations aren't mere afterthoughts, but are integral into the AI's evolution. So they are also trying to ensure that AI is going to be used for good, and that it's ensuring that ethical considerations aren't a mere afterthought. An additional one is the United Nations Multi-Stakeholder Advisory Board on Artificial Intelligence. This was created in 2020 with the Secretary General's Roadmap for Digital Cooperation. So it does recognize the duality of AI's potential, which means that it has really great benefits as well as really great risks to the user safety in an agency. And this body underscores the necessity for heightened multi-stakeholder efforts in the AI cooperation on a global scale. So they are currently still in formation, but they want to be individuals that spearhead analysis of forward recommendations for international governments of AI. So they're not even looking at just at Europe or United States, they want international governance of AI. Everybody has to get involved in this.